Welcome to the Sauna Pod. I'm Ryan Alsberg, and this is episode 4. Today, we are diving into the fascinating science of memory and learning, the two key pillars that shape how we acquire, retain, and recall information. If you've ever wanted to sharpen your memory, accelerate your learning, or unlock your brain's full potential, this episode is for you. We'll explore proven techniques, the science behind them, and how you can apply them to learn smarter and remember more. First thing I want to do is say grace. I'm grateful. Grateful for the opportunity to speak, grateful for the freedom to make my own decisions, and grateful to be alive. For whatever that means, I truly don't know, but I'm thankful for it every single day. What if you could unlock the full potential of your brain, retain more of what you learn, master new skills faster, and recall information on demand, whether for a test, a presentation, or just day-to-day use? The truth is, memory isn't a fixed ability. It's a skill you can actively improve with the right techniques and strategies. Over the past century, key scientific breakthroughs have reshaped our understanding of memory. In the early 1900s, psychologist Hermann Ebbinghaus developed the forgetting curve, showing how quickly we lose new information without reinforcement. The 1950s brought the discovery of short-term and long-term memory systems, while in the 1970s, the concept of working memory emerged, explaining how we manipulate information in the moment. More recently, the field has delved into cognitive strategies like spaced repetition and retrieval practice, proven to significantly boost memory retention. In this episode, we'll explore these techniques and the science behind them, showing you how to study more efficiently, why consistent effort is key, and how what you eat can power your brain for better learning and memory. Whether you are a student, a professional, or simply someone eager to sharpen your mind, the tools you will learn here are rooted in solid science, and they work. Section 1. The Science of Memory and Learning. The complex process of memory, encoding, storage, and retrieval. Memory is one of the brain's most fascinating and most complex functions. At its core, the process can be broken down into three main stages: encoding, storage, and retrieval. However, each of these stages involve intricate neural mechanisms that work in concert to allow us to learn, retain, and recall information. Let's explore each of these stages in detail and how the brain forms and strengthens connections that are crucial to memory formation. 1. Encoding, the first step of learning. Encoding is the initial stage of the memory process. This is when information first enters the brain and is processed so that it can be stored for later use. Encoding is a complex process in itself because it involves converting external stimuli, whether they are sights, sounds, emotions, or concepts, into a form that can be processed by the brain. There are several types of encoding. Visual encoding. This happens when we encode images, faces, or scenes. For example, when you see someone's face for the first time, your brain processes the visual features, like the shape of their nose, eyes, etc., to create a mental image of them. Acoustic encoding. This refers to how we encode sounds and verbal information. When you're trying to remember a phone number someone tells you, for instance, you're likely repeating it to yourself. This is acoustic encoding in action. Semantic encoding. This type of encoding occurs when we process the meaning of information rather than just the surface features. For example, when learning new vocabulary, you don't just remember the word's spelling or sound. You associate it with a meaning or concept. Neurobiologically, Encoding involves the activation of sensory areas in the brain that correspond to the type of information being processed. For instance, visual encoding activates the occipital lobe, while auditory encoding engages the temporal lobe. The hippocampus, a structure deep in the brain, plays a key role in encoding memories, especially when they are being converted into long-term storage. 2. Storage. Holding on to what we've learned. Once information is encoded, it moves into the storage phase. The brain must decide where to store the newly encoded information, how long to store it, and how to organize it for later retrieval. Storage essentially refers to the process of maintaining and organizing the information in the brain. Memory storage is divided into 3 primary categories. Sensory memory. This is the initial brief storage of sensory information. Sensory memory holds information from our senses, sight, sound, touch, for only a few milliseconds to seconds. If the information is deemed important, it moves to short-term memory. Short-term memory, STM, also known as working memory. Short-term memory holds information for a few seconds to minutes. It has a limited capacity, typically able to hold 7 plus or minus 2 pieces of information at a time. This is where you hold information temporarily, like remembering a phone number long enough to dial it. Long-term memory, LTM. This is where information can be stored for an extended period, ranging from hours to a lifetime. Long-term memory has virtually unlimited capacity and includes everything from facts and experiences to skills and emotions. The transition from short-term to long-term memory involves a process called consolidation, which is heavily dependent on repetition. Consolidation strengthens the neural connections involved in storing that memory, often during sleep. In fact, research suggests that sleep plays a critical role in the consolidation of memories, allowing the brain to process and solidify what was learned during the day. 3. Retrieval. Bringing information back into consciousness. Retrieval is the final stage in the memory process, the ability to bring information out of storage when needed. The act of retrieval involves accessing stored memories and bringing them into our conscious awareness. However, retrieving information is not always straightforward. It depends on how well the memory was encoded and how frequently it's been accessed in the past. There are 2 primary types of retrieval. Recall. This is when you pull information from memory without external cues, like when you're asked to list all the US presidents in order. You have to actively retrieve the information from your memory banks. Recognition. This is easier than recall. Recognition involves identifying previously learned information when you come across it again. It's like when you recognize someone's face in a crowd because your brain is retrieving that memory based on familiar features. The neuroscience behind memory formation, synapses, and neuroplasticity. The brain doesn't just passively store memories. It actively creates and strengthens neural connections as we learn. Each time we experience something new, our brain forms new synapses, or connections between neurons, that encode the new information. This is a fundamental aspect of learning and memory formation. The process of forming new synaptic connections is known as neuroplasticity, which refers to the brain's remarkable ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural pathways. Neuroplasticity allows the brain to adapt to new learning experiences, compensate for injuries, and optimize its functioning over time. When we practice or repeat a learned task or a piece of information, the connections between neurons grow stronger, and the pathway becomes more easily accessible. This is why repetition is so crucial for memory. Each time we review or actively engage with information, we are effectively reinforcing these neural connections and making it easier to retrieve the information in the future. Neuroplasticity is especially powerful when we are actively learning. During learning, the brain is most malleable, and new connections are formed at an accelerated rate. The more actively engaged we are with new information, whether through practice, problem solving, or teaching others, the more likely it is that these new connections will stick. The role of emotional and environmental factors in memory. While encoding, storage, and retrieval are the core stages of memory, the process is also influenced by various emotional and environmental factors. For instance, emotions. Emotions can have a powerful effect on memory. The amygdala, a brain structure involved in emotional processing, is deeply interconnected with the hippocampus, which is responsible for memory formation. Emotions can act as memory boosters, making emotionally charged experiences more likely to be remembered. This is why you might remember a particularly intense moment, like your first kiss or a traumatic event, with vivid detail. Context and environment. The context in which information is learned can also impact how well it is stored and retrieved. For example, if you study in the same room where you will take an exam, you are more likely to retrieve information successfully. This is known as context-dependent memory. Conclusion: the dynamic nature of memory. Memory is not just a passive storage system, it's a dynamic, ever-changing process that involves encoding, storing, and retrieving information. Each time you learn something new, your brain is forming new connections and reorganizing itself to retain that knowledge. The more we engage with and reinforce these connections through repetition, emotional association, and active learning, the stronger our memories become. Ultimately, memory and learning are deeply intertwined, with the brain's plasticity playing a pivotal role in both. Understanding how memory works can help you develop more effective study techniques, improve retention, and make learning a more engaging, enjoyable process. Section 2: the importance of effort. Doing the dirty work. While technology promises shortcuts, memory and learning are ultimately about effort. There's no replacement for the dirty work, the effort and time you invest in memorizing and understanding. One of the key findings in cognitive science is the testing effect. Studies show that actively recalling information, even before you fully learned it, significantly strengthens memory retention compared to simply rereading the material. This process is known as retrieval practice. For example, when you quiz yourself or explain what you've learned to someone else, your brain's neural pathways are reinforced. This effort is like exercise for your brain. Retrieval practice. The process of actively recalling information from memory to reinforce learning became a key concept in the study of memory and learning starting in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. However, its formal rise as a significant and scientifically validated learning strategy didn't occur until the late 20th century. Let's trace how this concept evolved and became a cornerstone of effective learning. Early memory theories and forgetting curves. 1885. The idea of actively engaging with information to improve memory has roots in early experimental psychology. In 1885, German psychologist Hermann Ebbinghaus published his groundbreaking work on memory, where he discovered the forgetting curve. He showed that memory retention drops sharply soon after learning, and that repeated practice could combat forgetting. Although he didn't directly focus on retrieval practice, his work laid the foundation for later studies on memory consolidation and how to strengthen information over time. The 20th century, the emergence of active recall and repetition. Throughout the first half of the 20th century, the study of memory and learning focused primarily on repetition, reviewing information over and over to help it stick. However, in the 1960s and 70s, cognitive psychology began challenging traditional views about rote memorization. Researchers like Endel Tulving and Richard Atkinson began to emphasize the active engagement of memory and learning, suggesting that merely reviewing information was not enough to create lasting memory. The 1980s, the first major studies on retrieval practice. The real shift toward retrieval practice began in the 1980s, with the work of John Dunlowski, Jeffrey Karpicke, and others. In a key study in 1982, Rowe, Deeger, and Butler showed that testing oneself on information, rather than simply rereading it, was far more effective in the long run. They demonstrated that when participants actively recalled information, a form of retrieval practice, they retained it better over time, compared to those who had only passively reviewed the material. The term retrieval practice wasn't coined until later, but the principle was emerging in these studies. This led to a shift in how educators and psychologists viewed learning, suggesting that active retrieval, such as quizzing yourself, was not just a test of knowledge, but a tool for strengthening memory. The 2000s and beyond, the rise of retrieval practice as a key learning strategy. The 2000s saw a surge in research on the power of retrieval practice, especially after the groundbreaking work by Jeffrey Karpicke in 2006. Karpicke's research, particularly his study published in Science in 2006, demonstrated that retrieving information from memory, such as through testing, was not only an indicator of how much you knew, but a powerful means of enhancing long-term retention. In a series of controlled experiments, Karpicke found that students who studied using retrieval practice, quizzing themselves or others, recalled more information later than those who simply reread material, even if they spent less time overall on the task. One of his most famous findings was the comparison between testing, retrieval, and restudying, passive review. He found that students who tested themselves on the material, even with fewer overall study sessions, had much better recall after weeks and months. This led to a major shift in educational theory and practice. Retrieval is not just a way to assess knowledge, it is a way to improve it. Why retrieval practice works, theories and mechanisms. The science behind why retrieval practice works is rooted in the way the brain stores and strengthens memories. When you actively retrieve information, you are not simply pulling it out. You are re-engaging the memory, which strengthens the neural connections associated with it. This process, known as consolidation, improves the accessibility of the memory, making it easier to retrieve again in the future. Moreover, retrieval practice helps you identify gaps in your knowledge. When you are trying to recall information and can't quite get it, your brain is prompted to make new connections and associations to retrieve it. This enhances both understanding and memory retention. Spaced retrieval and spaced repetition. Building on retrieval practice, the concept of spaced repetition emerged in the 1980s and 90s as an even more refined learning strategy. Research showed that spacing out retrieval attempts over increasing intervals of time, rather than cramming all at once, led to better retention. This idea was popularized in the creation of tools like Anki and Quizlet, which use algorithms to space out review sessions based on your individual progress. Modern day retrieval practice in educational settings. Today, Retrieval practice has become a cornerstone of evidence-based learning strategies. Schools, universities, and educational platforms emphasize the importance of active recall in their curriculums. Educators are increasingly incorporating formative assessments, short quizzes, and self testing exercises into their classrooms as a way to promote long term retention and deeper learning. Key takeaways. Retrieval practice emerged as a critical technique in the 1980s, building on earlier psychological concepts, and was solidified as a core strategy by studies in the 2000s, especially those by Jeffrey Karpicke. Research shows that actively retrieving information helps solidify memories in the brain and makes them easier to access later, while passive review, like rereading, does not have the same long-term benefits. The science behind retrieval practice points to the brain's ability to reorganize and strengthen neural pathways every time we recall something, making the process of retrieval an essential part of memory consolidation. Modern tools and techniques like spaced repetition capitalize on this principle, optimizing how often and when we review material to ensure maximum retention over time. In essence, retrieval practice is not just a study tip, it's a scientifically backed method to make learning more efficient and memory more robust. Section 3. Effective memorization techniques. Proven memorization techniques that make learning more efficient. Now that we understand the science behind memory, let's dive into some proven memorization techniques that can help make your learning process more effective. 1. Spaced repetition. This technique involves reviewing information at increasing intervals over time. Rather than cramming the night before, you revisit what you've learned in small, spaced out sessions. The science behind this is clear. Spaced repetition dramatically improves long-term retention by reinforcing memories before they begin to fade. By spacing out review sessions, you allow your brain to consolidate information and strengthen neural connections over time, leading to better recall. 2. Chunking. Our brains are naturally better at remembering information when it's grouped into meaningful chunks. For example, think about how much easier it is to remember a 10-digit phone number if you break it into smaller groups, like 123-456-7890, instead of trying to recall each individual digit. By chunking information into larger, more manageable pieces, you can improve your ability to retain and recall it later. The process works because chunking reduces the cognitive load on your working memory, making it easier for your brain to process and store information. 3. Mnemonics. Mnemonics are memory aids that help you recall larger amounts of information. These could be acronyms, phrases, or visual associations that simplify complex information into something memorable. For instance, the acronym PEMDAS helps students remember the order of operations in math: parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. The use of mnemonic devices works because they create associations in your brain, making abstract concepts more tangible and easier to recall. 4. Visualization. Associating information with vivid mental images is a powerful technique to enhance memory retention. When you are trying to remember a list or a series of concepts, try to imagine a scene where each item appears in a specific location. For instance, if you are trying to remember a shopping list, picture yourself walking through a grocery store, picking up each item from a specific aisle. Visualization taps into your brain's ability to recall visual cues, which are often more vivid and easier to remember than words or abstract concepts. 5. Storytelling. We are wired to remember narratives. When facts and figures are presented in a story format, they become far more memorable. Whether it's a history lesson, a complex scientific concept, or a series of instructions, turning information into a story helps you connect disparate ideas into a cohesive whole. Stories create emotional engagement and make the learning experience more meaningful, which helps to solidify memories. 6. Teaching others. One of the most effective and often overlooked memorization techniques is teaching others what you've learned. When you explain a concept or skill to someone else, you reinforce your understanding and memory of the material. This is known as the protege effect. Research shows that teaching forces you to retrieve and organize information in a way that helps solidify it in your own mind. Additionally, teaching others often requires you to clarify complex ideas, further enhancing your mastery of the topic. Whether it's explaining a concept to a peer, tutoring someone, or even imagining yourself teaching, the act of teaching is a powerful way to boost both your understanding and your memory. Each of these techniques leverages different cognitive principles, from reducing cognitive load to enhancing emotional engagement, making it easier to retain and recall information. These methods are all backed by science and have been proven to make learning more efficient. Section 4. Nutrition and Memory Retention. What we eat plays a surprisingly large role in our memory and cognitive function. Your brain is like any other organ. It needs the right fuel to function at its best. Number 1. Omega-3 fatty acids. Found in fatty fish like salmon, walnuts, and flax seeds, these healthy fats are critical for maintaining the structure and function of your brain cells. Omega-3s are linked to improved memory and a reduced risk of cognitive decline. 2. Antioxidants. Blueberries, dark chocolate, and leafy greens like spinach are packed with antioxidants. These compounds fight oxidative stress, which can damage brain cells and impair memory. Antioxidants also promote better communication between brain cells. 3. B vitamins. Vitamins like B6, B12, and folate are essential for healthy brain function. They help in the production of neurotransmitters, chemicals that allow brain cells to communicate effectively. A deficiency in B vitamins can lead to memory problems and cognitive decline. 4. Curcumin. Found in turmeric, curcumin has powerful anti-inflammatory properties and is linked to improved memory function. It's believed to increase levels of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, a protein that supports neuron growth and cognitive function. 5. Hydration. The brain is about 75% water, and staying hydrated is essential for optimal cognitive performance. Even mild dehydration can impair concentration and memory. Section 5. Building better memory habits. In addition to eating right and applying memorization techniques, physical activity is crucial for boosting memory and learning. Exercise increases blood flow to the brain, which helps with the creation of new neurons, a process called neurogenesis. Regular exercise like walking, running, or even yoga can significantly enhance memory and cognitive function. And don't forget the importance of sleep. Sleep consolidates memories and strengthens the connections formed during learning, so getting through rest is just as important as studying. Closing remarks. In the end, mastering and learning is a combination of science, effort, strategy, and self-care. By applying proven techniques, investing time in practice, and fueling your brain with the right foods, you can enhance your memory and become a more effective learner. Remember, there's no magic bullet. Success in learning comes from a consistent effort, proper techniques, and a healthy lifestyle. So, roll up your sleeves, dig into the work, and nourish your brain. It will pay off in the long run. Bonus: breathing techniques and learning. A powerful breathing technique that can significantly help with learning is diaphragmatic breathing, also known as deep belly breathing. This technique activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which helps reduce stress and anxiety, common barriers to effective learning, and increases mental clarity and focus. Here's why it works and how to practice it. Why diaphragmatic breathing helps with learning. 1. Reduces stress and anxiety. Learning, especially in high pressure environments like exams or presentations, can trigger the body's fight or flight response, which leads to shallow breathing and a stressed state. Diaphragmatic breathing counteracts this by triggering the relaxation response, reducing cortisol, the stress hormone, levels, and calming the nervous system. When you are calm, you are better able to focus and absorb new information. 2. Improves focus and cognitive function. Deep breathing increases the flow of oxygen to the brain, which enhances cognitive function, alertness, and concentration. Studies show that oxygenating the brain in this way can improve memory retention and the ability to process information. This is especially helpful when studying complex material or trying to stay engaged for long periods. 3. Promotes mental clarity and emotional regulation. Deep breathing helps clear the mind by reducing the mental clutter caused by anxiety or overstimulation. When you are mentally clear and emotionally balanced, you are more likely to think critically, retain information, and make connections between concepts. How to practice diaphragmatic breathing. 1. Find a comfortable position. Sit in a chair with your back straight or lie down on your back in a relaxed position. Make sure your body is relaxed and your shoulders aren't hunched. 2. Place your hands. Place one hand on your chest and the other on your belly. This will help you become aware of your breath and ensure you are breathing deeply. 3. Inhale deeply through your nose. Slowly breathe in through your nose for a count of 4. Focus on letting your belly rise as you fill your lungs with air. Your chest should stay relatively still, and the movement should come from your diaphragm, not your upper chest. 4. Hold the breath. Hold your breath for a count of 4 at the top of the inhalation. This brief pause allows the oxygen to circulate throughout your body. 5. Exhale slowly through your mouth. Slowly exhale through your mouth for a count of 6, ensuring that you are releasing all of the air from your lungs. Try to make the exhalation longer than the inhalation to activate the relaxation response. 6. Repeat. Continue this cycle for 5 to 10 minutes, or until you feel calm and focused. Ideally, practice this breathing technique before studying, during breaks, or whenever you need to reset your focus. When to use diaphragmatic breathing for learning. Before studying, calm your mind and prepare your brain to absorb new information. During study sessions, if you feel your focus waning or stress levels rising, pause for a few minutes of deep breathing to regain clarity. Before exams or presentations, reduce pre-test anxiety and center yourself with a few deep breaths to improve concentration and performance. Incorporating diaphragmatic breathing into your study routine or daily habits can lead to greater learning efficiency, reduced stress, and improved memory retention, all of which help you perform better in academic or professional settings. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Also, be sure to follow me on social media to stay up to date with my journey.